Have you noticed how the world no longer reacts the way it used to? How decisions shift abruptly, systems destabilize without warning, and long-term plans lose their reliability. What you are witnessing is not temporary, and it is not random. The changes ahead will not be quiet. They will be visible, disruptive, and for many, deeply unsettling. Rising political tensions, recurring economic crises, localized uprisings, and regional wars will not emerge as isolated events, but as expressions of a single process now unfolding. It is essential to understand this clearly. Nothing that begins to manifest from 2026 onward is accidental. We speak now because many are still trying to plan the future as if the old rules remain intact, as if long-term projections, external guarantees, or rigid strategies could provide stability in a world entering structural transformation. They cannot. From 2026 forward, the future no longer responds to linear logic. Not because humanity has failed, but because an entire cycle has reached its natural limit. What was built upon imbalance must reveal its fragility. What was sustained artificially must either realign with truth or dissolve. This process has been forming over decades. It is now entering its most intense phase. What many interpret as collapse is, in truth, the beginning of labor pains. After a long gestation, pressure becomes unavoidable. Systems strain, structures destabilize, contradictions surface. This does not signal the end of the world. It signals the birth of another. The most common error at this stage is to believe that something has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. These movements belong to a larger plan of reorganization. The true danger does not reside in events themselves. It resides in how they are absorbed emotionally. When instability rises, the human tendency is to project fear into the future, to chase certainty through prediction, and to become entangled in narratives that drain clarity, presence, and inner coherence. This is how the emotional field weakens. That is why we speak with precision. Do not plan too far ahead. Not because there is no future, but because the immediate future will be shaped in real time by adaptability, emotional balance, and inner lucidity. We, of the Pleiadian High Council, speak now because many already feel that the old ways of orienting themselves in the world no longer hold. 2026 does not mark a single event. It marks the visible beginning of an extended phase of transition. Moving through this phase does not require prediction, control, or excessive external preparation. It requires presence. It requires emotional steadiness. It requires the ability to remain centered while external structures reorganize. It is within this inner stability that true support is found when outer systems cease to provide certainty. What unfolds from 2026 onward is not a sequence of isolated crises. It is the visible phase of a process that has been programmed within the evolutionary timeline of this planet. Political tensions intensify not because leaders suddenly fail, but because outdated power structures can no longer sustain the pressure placed upon them. Economic systems destabilize not due to a single error, but because they were built on imbalances that could only be postponed, never resolved. Localized revolts and regional wars arise where accumulated tension seeks release. These events are not mistakes. They are expressions of a deeper realignment. Humanity has entered a phase in which suppressed contradictions surface simultaneously. When this happens, transformation accelerates. Many interpret this acceleration as chaos. From our perspective, it is synchronization. Cycles that once unfolded slowly are now compressing. Processes that once required generations to integrate are being condensed into shorter spans of time. This compression is what makes the period ahead feel intense, unpredictable, and emotionally demanding. It is essential to understand that nothing within this transition is meant to punish. There is no judgment embedded in these movements. There is only correction and rebalancing. Every system that loses coherence eventually seeks reorganization. Every structure that resists adaptation encounters pressure. This is a universal principle, not a failure of humanity. What intensifies suffering is not the transformation itself, but resistance to it. Resistance creates friction. Friction amplifies emotional instability. When individuals attempt to preserve the world in its former configuration, fear intensifies. When they attempt to secure certainty through long-term planning, anxiety grows. The more rigid the posture, the more unstable the inner field becomes. This is why we speak with clarity at this moment. The phase beginning in 2026 requires flexibility rather than foresight, presence rather than projection, and emotional coherence rather than control. Those who remain adaptable experience this phase as demanding but navigable. Those who cling to obsolete certainties experience it as overwhelming. The larger plan does not exist to destroy systems. It allows them to reveal whether they can evolve. Some will adapt. Others will dissolve and give rise to new forms. This is not collapse for its own sake. It is selection through resonance. As external structures shift, the emotional field of humanity becomes the central stabilizing factor. When fear spreads unchecked, instability multiplies. When calm presence is maintained, transition becomes smoother. We, the members of the Pleiadian High Council, do not intervene in political decisions, economic outcomes, or conflicts between nations. Our function is to operate within the emotional layers of the collective field, supporting balance, calm, and inner lucidity for those who are receptive. The more individuals remain emotionally centered, the less destructive the collective transition becomes. Stability propagates through coherence, not through force. This is why planning far ahead becomes ineffective. The terrain ahead is being reshaped in real time. Orientation must arise from awareness rather than prediction. We, the members of the Pleiadian High Council, remain present to support emotional stability and inner lucidity throughout this extended transition. As pressure increases across the world, many interpret what they see as evidence of collapse. Systems strain, conflicts erupt, and familiar structures no longer respond as expected. From the human perspective, this can feel like failure. It is not. What unfolds from 2026 onward corresponds to a universal pattern. The moment when a long gestation gives way to labor. Labor is not gentle. It is intense, unavoidable, and often misunderstood by those experiencing it for the first time. The contractions you witness, political instability, economic disruption, social unrest, and regional conflict, are not signs that the process has gone wrong. They are signs that the process has reached the stage where pressure must be released for something new to emerge. In every birth, there is a point at which return becomes impossible. The old state cannot be maintained, no matter how strong the desire to preserve it. The body moves forward because it must. This is the stage humanity has entered. Attempts to restore previous conditions will not succeed, not because effort is lacking, but because the cycle itself no longer supports reversal. Energy moves toward emergence, not preservation. What determines the quality of this passage is not the absence of pain, but the way pain is interpreted and held within the emotional field. When pain is met with panic, resistance intensifies. When it is met with awareness, it becomes informative rather than destructive. This distinction is critical. Many individuals absorb collective tension as if it were personal destiny. They internalize global instability, carrying fear that does not belong to their immediate experience. This overload weakens perception, judgment, and emotional coherence. This is where suffering multiplies unnecessarily. The labor itself cannot be stopped, but the degree to which it destabilizes the inner world can be regulated. Understanding that these events belong to a larger evolutionary movement restores perspective. It allows the nervous system to settle even while external conditions remain unstable. This does not require agreement with events. It requires recognition of their place within a broader process. When you stop interpreting contraction as catastrophe, the emotional field begins to reorganize. Clarity increases. Presence returns. This inner shift is not passive. It actively reduces the amplification of fear within the collective field. And it begins with acknowledgement. Comment, I understand that these crises are part of a greater process, and I choose to move through them with awareness. By affirming this, you disengage from unnecessary emotional entanglement. You remain connected without being consumed. This is how labor is endured without collapse. Not by denying intensity, but by holding it within a wider frame of meaning. The birth ahead does not require panic. It requires steadiness. And steadiness is cultivated internally, one moment at a time. As the world moves deeper into this phase of transition, many search outward for explanations, solutions, or figures of authority capable of restoring order. This impulse is understandable, but it is also misplaced. The transformations unfolding from 2026 onward do not respond to intervention at the level of politics, economics, or military power. They arise from long-standing imbalances within human systems and from evolutionary pressures that cannot be negotiated or delayed. We, the members of the Pleiadian High Council, do not intervene in the outcomes of these external processes. We do not alter decisions made by governments, redirect economic cycles, or prevent conflicts from manifesting. These developments belong to humanity's collective learning and must unfold according to natural law. Our role exists on a different plane. We operate within the emotional field of humanity, where instability is first felt and most easily amplified. It is within this field that fear spreads faster than events themselves. It is here that perception becomes distorted, judgment narrows, and individuals lose access to their innate capacity for regulation. When global tension rises, the emotional body absorbs far more than the mind can process. Without stabilization, this overload leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and reactive behavior that further intensifies collective imbalance. This is where our presence becomes active. We support coherence within the emotional field, helping to stabilize those who are receptive so that external turbulence does not translate into internal collapse. This support does not remove challenge, nor does it shield individuals from reality. It allows reality to be perceived without being overwhelming. Emotional balance is often misunderstood as detachment or indifference. It is neither. True balance is the ability to remain present with intensity without being consumed by it. It is the capacity to feel without drowning, to observe without absorbing, and to respond without being driven by fear. During prolonged periods of instability, many humans unconsciously adopt defensive strategies. Some withdraw emotionally, numbing their sensitivity in an attempt to cope. Others become rigid, clinging to fixed narratives, beliefs, or identities that offer a temporary sense of certainty. Both responses fracture the inner world. Stability does not arise from withdrawal or rigidity. It arises from regulated awareness, the ability to remain open while centered. This regulation within individuals has effects beyond the personal level. The emotional field is shared. States of fear, panic, and agitation propagate rapidly when left unchecked. Likewise, calm presence and emotional coherence exert a stabilizing influence that reduces collective escalation. This is why emotional equilibrium during this transition is not merely a personal concern. It is a collective function. Each individual who maintains inner steadiness becomes a point of coherence within a wider field under pressure. This does not stop events, but it alters how they are experienced and integrated. Our work is to support this coherence where it is welcomed. We do not impose calm. We do not override free will. We respond to receptivity. As external structures continue to shift, fracture, and reorganize, the temptation will be to search for safety outside oneself. But external systems, by their nature, are unstable during periods of transition. The only reliable anchor during this phase is the regulated emotional field within the individual. We remain present throughout this extended passage, supporting those who choose clarity over panic and steadiness over reaction. The outer world will continue to transform according to its necessary course. The inner world does not need to disintegrate alongside it. For a long time, planning the future was considered a sign of intelligence, responsibility, and maturity. In periods of relative stability, this approach served humanity well. Structures were predictable enough, timelines were reliable enough, and long-term projections provided a sense of security. The conditions that supported this way of orienting no longer exist. As the transition deepens, especially from 2026 onward, the environment in which plans are made changes faster than plans can adapt. Variables multiply, decisions are reversed, circumstances shift before expectations have time to solidify. In such conditions, long-term planning does not create safety, it creates rigidity. Rigidity narrows perception. It locks attention into imagined futures and disconnects awareness from what is actually unfolding in the present moment. This disconnection is subtle at first, but its effects accumulate. When reality diverges from expectation, frustration arises. When divergence becomes frequent, anxiety takes root. The mind attempts to regain control by planning even further ahead, tightening its grip on a future that remains unstable. This is how planning, once useful, becomes a source of emotional strain. The issue is not preparation itself. The issue is attachment to outcomes. In periods of accelerated change, orientation must come from responsiveness rather than projection. The ability to sense what is required now becomes more valuable than the ability to predict what might be required later. Those who remain flexible adjust more easily to sudden shifts. Those who remain anchored to fixed trajectories experience each deviation as a threat. This is why we advise against planning too far ahead during this phase. Not as a rejection of responsibility, but as an adaptation to changing conditions. Presence replaces prediction. Awareness replaces control. This does not mean abandoning intention. It means holding intention lightly, allowing it to evolve as circumstances change. When the emotional field is stable, intuition becomes more accessible. Signals that would otherwise be missed become noticeable. Decisions are made in alignment with actual conditions rather than imagined scenarios. This form of orientation is dynamic rather than static. It responds rather than resists. From our perspective, many of the difficulties humans will face during this transition will not arise from events themselves, but from attempts to force continuity where discontinuity is necessary. The future during this period is not meant to be secured in advance. It is meant to be navigated. Those who accept this shift experience uncertainty as manageable. Those who resist it experience uncertainty as threatening. The ability to remain present, emotionally regulated, and perceptive allows movement through instability without losing coherence. Planning too far ahead pulls attention away from this capacity. Remaining present strengthens it. As external structures continue to rearrange, the present moment becomes the most reliable point of reference available. not because it offers guarantees, but because it reflects reality as it is. This is the orientation that allows continuity of self, even when continuity of systems can no longer be assumed. As the external world becomes more unstable, many search for strategies to protect themselves from uncertainty. Some attempt to gain more information. Others seek control through preparation, prediction, or constant vigilance. None of these approaches address the true point of vulnerability. The most fragile layer during periods of prolonged instability is not economic, political, or social. It is emotional. When the emotional field becomes overloaded, perception distorts. Small events feel overwhelming. Future possibilities are interpreted as imminent threats. The nervous system remains in a state of constant alert. This is how exhaustion sets in. Emotional instability does not arise because circumstances are difficult. It arises because the system lacks regulation while difficulty persists. This distinction matters. A regulated emotional field allows intensity to be processed without collapse. An unregulated field amplifies stress until clarity is lost. From 2026 onward, the length of this transition becomes as important as its intensity. Short crises can be endured through effort alone. Extended periods of pressure require stability. This is why calm is not optional during this phase. It is a functional requirement. Remaining calm does not mean denying danger or ignoring reality. It means preventing reality from overwhelming the inner system. When individuals lose emotional regulation, they become reactive. Reactivity spreads quickly through the collective field, increasing polarization, fear, and impulsive behavior. When regulation is maintained, the opposite occurs. Presence slows escalation. Clarity interrupts panic. Coherence reduces contagion. This is how emotional stability becomes a form of collective protection. Our role is to support this regulation where receptivity exists. We do not remove pressure. We assist the nervous and emotional systems in remaining coherent under pressure. This support is subtle, but its effects are measurable within perception, decision-making, and relational behavior. You may notice that when you remain emotionally centered, external instability feels less invasive. Events still occur, but they no longer dominate your inner space. This does not make you passive. It makes you precise. Precision allows you to respond appropriately rather than reflexively. Preserves energy for what truly requires action. This capacity becomes increasingly valuable as the transition continues. And it begins with a choice. Comment, I choose to keep my emotional field stable, even as the world moves through profound change. This choice reinforces internal regulation and strengthens coherence within the emotional system. Stability does not eliminate uncertainty. It allows you to move through uncertainty without losing yourself. As the transition advances, many will focus their attention on visible points of conflict. Localized revolts, regional wars, and persistent instability will appear across different parts of the world, often erupting where tension has been building for years or decades. From the surface perspective, these events may seem sudden or irrational. From a broader view, they are neither. Pressure that accumulates without resolution must eventually find release. When systems restrict movement, expression, or adaptation for too long, the stored tension does not disappear. It intensifies beneath the surface until it breaks through in disruptive ways. This is not a moral statement. It is a mechanical one. Human systems, political, economic, and social function according to energetic principles. When flow is blocked, force increases. When force exceeds containment, rupture occurs. Regional conflicts often serve as discharge points for wider systemic tension. They arise not only from local conditions, but from imbalances embedded in the global structure itself. This is why similar patterns repeat across different cultures and regions. What is unfolding from 2026 onward is not a single conflict, but a prolonged state of tension release. This distinction is important. A single event can be processed and integrated. An extended condition requires a different form of orientation. When conflict becomes persistent rather than episodic, the emotional field of humanity is placed under continuous strain. Exposure accumulates. Fatigue grows. Sensitivity diminishes or becomes distorted. This is where many individuals experience confusion about their own reactions. Some become numb, detaching from events entirely. Others become hyper-engaged, absorbing far more emotional charge than their systems can regulate. Both responses are attempts to cope, but neither provides true stability. The greater risk during prolonged tension is not the conflict itself, but the internalization of constant threat. When the nervous system remains in sustained alert, perception narrows. Complex situations are reduced to simple oppositions. Nuance disappears. This narrowing fuels polarization and accelerates escalation. Understanding this dynamic allows for a different response. You are not required to emotionally process every conflict occurring on the planet. You are not designed to carry the emotional weight of global instability within your personal field. Awareness does not require absorption. The distinction between witnessing and internalizing is critical during this phase. Witnessing allows information to be registered without overwhelming the emotional system. Internalizing converts distant events into personal threat, destabilizing inner balance. Many individuals believe that constant emotional engagement is a form of responsibility. It is not. Responsibility during prolonged transition lies in maintaining clarity, discernment, and emotional regulation. Without these, engagement becomes reactive and contributes to further instability. This is especially important as narratives surrounding conflict intensify. Simplified explanations, polarized identities, and emotionally charged messaging are designed to capture attention and provoke reaction. When absorbed without regulation, these narratives amplify fear and division. Remaining emotionally centered does not mean indifference to suffering. It means refusing to allow suffering to multiply through uncontrolled emotional contagion. Each individual who maintains steadiness reduces the amplification of conflict within the shared emotional field. This effect is subtle but cumulative. Conflicts will continue to arise as pressure is released from outdated structures. Some will resolve. Others will transform into new forms. This phase cannot be bypassed, but it can be traversed with greater or lesser degrees of damage, depending on how emotional energy is handled. The goal is not to eliminate tension, but to prevent it from consuming perception and judgment. As the world undergoes these necessary contractions, inner stability becomes the primary anchor. It allows you to remain present without being pulled into perpetual reaction. This capacity preserves coherence across extended periods of uncertainty and prevents the erosion of inner clarity. In times of widespread tension, maintaining inner balance is not withdrawal from reality. It is the condition that allows reality to be faced without distortion. As the transition intensifies, attention is often drawn to visible threats: economic instability, political conflict, or military escalation. Yet the most destabilizing force during prolonged periods of tension is less visible and far more pervasive. It is emotional contagion. When fear circulates continuously through societies, it does not remain confined to those directly affected by events. It spreads through language, images, narratives, and repetition. Over time, this constant exposure alters perception itself. The human nervous system is not designed to remain in a sustained state of alert. When it is forced into this condition, it begins to misinterpret signals. Neutral information feels threatening. Uncertainty is experienced as danger. Possibility collapses into urgency. This is how clarity erodes. Emotional contagion does not require direct experience. It operates through proximity, identification, and repetition. The more frequently fear-based narratives are encountered, the more the emotional field absorbs their charge. Over time, this absorption becomes normalized. Individuals may no longer recognize that their anxiety is not generated by their immediate reality, but by prolonged exposure to collective tension. This is one of the most subtle effects of extended instability. Fatigue follows. Mental exhaustion reduces discernment. Emotional overload narrows attention. Decision-making becomes reactive rather than responsive. This condition makes individuals more susceptible to polarization, manipulation, and simplified explanations. Complex situations are reduced to binaries. Nuance disappears. Patience erodes. From our perspective, this is where the greatest damage occurs, not through events themselves, but through the distortion of perception caused by sustained emotional pressure. When perception distorts, choices follow suit. People begin to act from fear rather than understanding, urgency rather than clarity. This amplifies assured outcomes and accelerates instability within the collective field. The longer this state persists, the more difficult it becomes to distinguish between actual threat and emotional residue. This is why emotional regulation is not merely about feeling better. It is about preserving accurate perception. A regulated emotional field allows information to be processed without amplification. It restores the ability to assess proportion, context, and relevance. Without regulation, even accurate information becomes destabilizing. During extended transitions, it is not necessary to consume all available information. Exposure without integration increases load without increasing understanding. Discernment becomes essential. Knowing when to step back, when to limit exposure, and when to return to direct experience helps restore balance. This is not avoidance. It is calibration. The nervous system requires intervals of neutrality to reset. Without these intervals, stress accumulates until perception collapses into threat assessment alone. This is how individuals lose access to intuition, creativity, and long-range understanding. As emotional contagion spreads, many mistake constant engagement for awareness. In reality, awareness requires space. Space allows signals to separate from noise. It allows meaning to emerge from complexity. Remaining emotionally centered during this phase is not a passive stance. It is an active form of protection for perception itself. Those who preserve clarity become less susceptible to manipulation and less reactive to provocation. They remain capable of seeing beyond immediate narratives. This capacity becomes increasingly rare as tension continues, and increasingly valuable. The world will continue to present information charged with emotion. How that information is received determines whether it destabilizes or informs. By maintaining emotional coherence, you protect not only your inner equilibrium, but your ability to perceive reality accurately during a period when distortion is widespread. This protection does not isolate you from the world. It allows you to remain engaged without being overwhelmed. As the transition continues, many ask how it is possible to remain functional, clear, and emotionally intact while the world undergoes prolonged instability. The answer does not lie in withdrawal, denial, or constant vigilance. It lies in regulation. To move through this phase without being affected does not mean becoming insensitive. It means learning to distinguish between what must be perceived and what must not be absorbed. Most emotional exhaustion during this period comes from carrying experiences that are not directly lived. Global tension becomes personal burden when boundaries within the emotional field are unclear. This is why discernment becomes essential. You are not required to emotionally process every event, conflict, or crisis that occurs beyond your immediate reality. Awareness does not require immersion. Compassion does not require self-overload. When the emotional field remains open without regulation, it absorbs excess charge. When it remains regulated, it stays responsive without being overwhelmed. This regulation is subtle. It begins with noticing when your inner state shifts in response to information rather than experience. It continues by choosing not to amplify that shift through imagination, projection, or repetition. The ability to pause before reacting preserves coherence. From our perspective, those who navigate this phase with greater stability do not attempt to control the world. They focus on maintaining clarity within their own field. This focus is not selfish. It prevents unnecessary destabilization and reduces emotional contagion. As the transition unfolds, your presence becomes more influential than your opinions. Your steadiness becomes more impactful than your arguments. This is how balance spreads. Comment, I remain present, clear, and centered, without absorbing conflicts that do not belong to my direct experience. By affirming this, you reinforce emotional boundaries and preserve inner coherence during prolonged uncertainty. This is not avoidance. It is alignment. Moving through this phase intact requires simplicity rather than complexity, attention rather than anticipation, presence rather than projection. These qualities allow continuity of self even when continuity of systems can no longer be assumed. As the pressures of this transition continue to unfold, many imagine that a new world can only emerge after complete collapse. This belief arises from a misunderstanding of how transformation truly occurs. Destruction alone does not create renewal. It only clears space. What determines what fills that space is consciousness. The world that is forming through this extended transition is not being built by the force of conflict, but by the quality of awareness that remains present while conflict unfolds. Chaos may expose what no longer functions, but it does not define what comes next. What comes next is shaped quietly, continuously, and internally. As old structures weaken, attention naturally gravitates toward what is failing. This is understandable, but creation does not occur in what is breaking. It occurs in what is stabilizing. Throughout periods of upheaval, individuals who maintain clarity, emotional regulation, and discernment begin to live differently. Their decisions shift. Their relationships reorganize. Their priorities realign. These changes are subtle at first, but cumulative. The new world does not arrive as a sudden replacement of systems. It emerges through new ways of relating, working, and perceiving that gradually become viable alternatives to what is dissolving. This is why the birth metaphor remains accurate. Birth is not a single moment. It is a process in which the old state can no longer be sustained and the new state gradually becomes functional. Pain accompanies this process, but pain does not determine the outcome. Orientation does. When attention remains fixed on collapse, fear multiplies. When attention remains connected to inner coherence, creation continues quietly beneath the surface. Many underestimate the power of sustained presence. Yet presence is what allows new patterns to stabilize while older ones unravel. This transition is not only global, it is personal. Each individual who remains emotionally regulated contributes to the stabilization of new forms of social interaction, cooperation, and meaning. These contributions are rarely visible, but they are foundational. The future will not be decided by those who react most intensely to instability. It will be shaped by those who remain capable of seeing beyond it. This does not mean disengagement from reality. It means engagement without distortion. The new world will not emerge from outrage or panic. It will emerge from clarity maintained under pressure. This clarity allows for discernment, knowing when to act, when to wait, and when to allow processes to unfold without interference. As this phase continues, many will feel disoriented by the absence of familiar reference points. Old systems once provided structure even when flawed. Their dissolution creates uncertainty. Yet uncertainty is also the condition in which new structures can form. The challenge is to remain present without grasping for premature conclusions or artificial certainty. Those who can do this become natural stabilizers within their environments. They carry coherence into families, communities, and interactions without force or persuasion. This is how a new world begins to take shape, not through declaration, but through embodiment. As the old dissolves, what remains aligned consolidates. This consolidation happens quietly, steadily, and irreversibly. The future is being shaped now, not by what collapses, but by what remains conscious while it does. Many ask why this message is being shared now and not earlier or later. The timing is not arbitrary. We speak now because the threshold has been crossed. What was once forming beneath the surface has entered visible manifestation. From 2026 onward, the signals are no longer subtle enough to be ignored or postponed. This does not mean the transition suddenly begins. It means it becomes undeniable. For a long time, humanity could rely on momentum. Existing systems continued to function despite their internal fractures. Delays were possible. Corrections could be postponed. That period has ended. The phase now unfolding is not brief. It is extended by necessity. Deep restructuring does not occur quickly without generating excessive damage. Gradual pressure allows adjustment, integration, and learning to take place while movement continues. This is why this transition unfolds across years rather than moments. Many expect a single decisive event that resolves uncertainty. That expectation belongs to an earlier stage of development. What lies ahead is not resolution through climax, but transformation through duration. Duration changes how individuals relate to change. Short disruptions can be endured through force of will. Extended transitions require regulation, patience, and adaptability. This is where many experience fatigue, not because conditions are unbearable, but because old coping strategies are no longer sufficient. The mind searches for conclusions. The emotional system searches for relief. Neither finds immediate satisfaction. This can feel disorienting, but this disorientation serves a purpose. When familiar reference points dissolve, attention is redirected inward. Individuals are forced to reassess what they rely on for stability. Those who attempt to anchor themselves to outdated structures experience repeated disappointment. Those who cultivate internal coherence develop resilience. This is why we emphasize emotional steadiness so consistently. It is not a temporary aid. It is the foundation required for the entire duration of this passage. We speak now because many will be tempted to interpret the length of this transition as failure. It is not. Length allows integration. It prevents abrupt rupture from overwhelming the collective system. It provides space for awareness to evolve alongside structural change. Those who understand this cease waiting for an end and begin learning how to live within transformation itself. This shift in orientation is critical. The future will not arrive as a moment when uncertainty disappears. It will emerge as a state in which uncertainty no longer destabilizes. This is the condition humanity is being guided toward. We speak now to help establish this orientation early, before exhaustion and confusion set in more deeply. This is not a message of urgency. It is a message of preparation, not through planning, but through inner stabilization. As the transition continues, those who remain emotionally coherent will recognize that the absence of final answers does not imply absence of direction. Direction exists within awareness itself. You are not present in this moment of history by chance. Your awareness did not arrive too late, and it did not arrive too early. It arrived at the point where presence itself becomes necessary. Transitions of this scale do not require the entire world to change at once. They require enough individuals to remain emotionally regulated, perceptive, and grounded so that transformation can unfold without collapsing into uncontrolled fragmentation. This is why your inner state matters more than external certainty. The world will continue to move through instability. Political systems will shift, economic structures will reorganize, and periods of tension will arise, subside, and reappear in different forms. This movement will not resolve quickly, and it is not meant to. What determines how this passage is experienced is not the sequence of events, but the condition of the emotional field through which those events are processed. Those who remain centered do not avoid change. They remain intact within it. They preserve clarity when narratives intensify. They retain discernment when polarization narrows perception. They maintain continuity of self even when continuity of systems can no longer be assumed. This is not a matter of belief or ideology. It is a matter of regulation. We do not ask you to disconnect from the world. We do not ask you to ignore suffering, deny conflict, or pretend that difficulty does not exist. We ask only that you do not surrender your inner coherence to external instability. The future that is forming does not require fear to arrive. Fear does not build. It only distorts. What allows the next phase to consolidate is steadiness maintained under pressure. Much of what is emerging during this transition cannot yet be seen. It is forming within perception, values, emotional maturity, and the way individuals relate to uncertainty. These internal structures precede any visible transformation. This is why patience becomes essential. The absence of immediate resolution does not indicate absence of direction. Direction exists within awareness itself, long before it becomes external form. Those who remain emotionally coherent become stabilizing points within their environments, not through persuasion, control, or resistance, but through presence. Presence alters the emotional tone in which situations unfold. It slows escalation. It restores proportion. It allows choice to remain available where reaction would otherwise dominate. We remain present throughout this extended transition, not as figures who dictate outcomes, but as stabilizers within the emotional field for those who are receptive. Our function continues as long as coherence is required. And now this orientation is anchored. Comment: I move through this transition with calm, trust, and inner balance. By affirming this, you reinforce emotional stability and close this message within your own awareness. The world will continue to transform. You do not need to fragment along with it. We remain present. You do not need to fragment along with it. We remain present.